A Nefarious Nightmare contains themes that may be explicit or triggering for some. Specific warnings and disclaimers will be mentioned in the show notes. A Nefarious Nightmare assumes all parties that are mentioned in these cases to be innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to Season 4.
On December 18th, 2011, 23-year-old Phoenix Coldon left her parents' house in Missouri and was never seen again. Her SUV was then found abandoned in the middle of the road.
Yet, no one seemed to be suspicious. While this case does have some twists and turns, it's purely anger-inducing, and at the end of the day, we all just want to know what happened. With that, I'm Amanda Cronin.
And I'm Courtney Fenner, and A Nefarious Nightmare presents Rise with the Sun. What happened to Phoenix Coldon?
Phoenix Reeves was born on May 23, 1988, in California. Her family moved to Missouri for her father's job when she was just a child, and her mother, Gloria Reeves, eventually married a man named Lawrence Coldon, who ended up adopting her. She was homeschooled, and she became the junior fencing champion of St. Louis County.
Phoenix mastered several instruments and grew from a quiet little girl into a talented young adult. After turning 18, Phoenix managed to get her parents to co-sign a lease for an apartment she moved into with a friend. And that friend would later turn out to be her boyfriend her parents didn't know that she was living with.
Goldia and Lawrence Coldon, Phoenix's parents, state that Phoenix was a kind-hearted, very happy person to have in your life. She loved music and playing the piano. She was formerly a student at the University of Missouri in St. Louis when she disappeared. According to Phoenix's former fencing teacher, she was a fantastic fencer and really kind, respectful, and a dedicated woman. Her pastor says that she was a brilliant young woman, but she was innocent and naive. Both feel that she fell victim to sex trafficking, which by definition is the action or practice of illegally transporting people from one country or area to another for the purpose of sexual exploitation.
Her parents said that their vehicle was in the shop, so they were depending on Phoenix to drive them around at the time of her disappearance. In the morning of December 18th, 2011, her mother states that she and Phoenix went to church at 11 a.m. where Phoenix sang in the choir, and then they went to the store after church. They then returned home a little after 2 p.m., and then at about 3 p.m., she walked past her dad without saying a word and walked out the front door, getting into her car, and after idling for a few minutes, she drove away. This would be the last time that she was ever seen.
Goldia, her mother, said, quote, Phoenix never left the house without saying something, without saying, I'm going down the street, or I'm going to the store. Phoenix has never left the house like that, end quote. The next morning, Goldia noticed that Phoenix had not come home, so she called the cops, and the officer, after finding out that Phoenix was an adult at 23 years old, said that she was grown and she doesn't have to tell them where she is. This is all too common of a theme in cases of disappearances where someone who would be of an adult age were not further looked into or taken seriously just due to the fact of their age. You see a lot of this in cases similar to Phoenix's, as well as with runaways who are just under the age of an adult, or those who disappeared that might have been sex workers. Just wanted to throw that tidbit in there because this case is one example of evidence of that fact. Now, Goldia would not take that as an answer and demanded he make a missing persons report. He went to his car, ran her car info through the system, and nothing came up on his end.
Now, while her car was located within hours of her leaving her parents' house, 3 hours to be exact, her parents wouldn't know where it was until 2 weeks later, when a family friend told the Coldons that she had seen the car at an impound lot on January 1st of 2012, and then they'd find and retrieve it. The car was originally found abandoned on the corner of 9th Street and St. Clair Avenue on East St. Louis, Illinois at 5:27 p.m. December 18th. While this was only a 25-minute drive from their home, it was in another state. The car was simply impounded as quote-unquote abandoned by the local police at 6:23 p.m., and its registered owner was never notified. Lawrence, Phoenix's dad, said, quote, "We would have had a 2-week start if we'd known where the car was," end quote.
Goldia stated, quote, "I just wish these police had done what they were supposed to do by running those plates and seeing that the vehicle was registered to me," end quote.
Wait a minute. You mean to tell us that this is yet another case where law enforcement of some kind will just omit information? Sorry, I think everyone here is gathering what I'm trying to say, but moving on.
She also said that police didn't even search the area after finding the car initially. Goldia had also had to contact the mayor's office in order to have the $1,000 impound bill waived. The police never made an inventory of the car and claimed there was nothing inside. But according to Goldia, the East St. Louis police officer handling it claimed that they never created an inventory sheet for the vehicle because no personal items were found inside of it. Goldia states, quote, "That was not true. When we checked the vehicle at the impound lot, there were lots of things in it, including her glasses, her purse with her driver's license, and her shoes," end quote.
Officer Perry is the officer to find her car. He got the call at 5:27 p.m. and he got there at about 5:35 p.m. He said his first thought when he got the vehicle was that it had run out of gas since it was stopped in the street. There was no one in the vehicle and he ran the VIN and plates and saw that it was registered, so he just got it towed and to get it out of the street. He says nothing stood out. Officer Perry says that when the car got towed, it was then processed in a nationwide system.
He then said there's not a real process as far as a vehicle involved in a missing person. If it was stolen, it would have popped up immediately. I mean, isn't this an issue? But he goes on to say that it took a little time for it to kick into the system and let the other systems know that this vehicle had been impounded. When he was asked about what was in the car, he said, quote, "Just some miscellaneous items like an ink pen and small items like that," end quote.
Yeah, and even if it were just some miscellaneous items like an ink pen and small items like that, it's still evidence. They've gotten DNA hits off of even less obvious things. I mean, whatever happened to combing the scene for evidence? Jesus.
When asked if he saw a purse or a bag or anything like that, he said no, there was no purse. And when he was asked on the condition of the car, he said that the car was not running, which is different from what was said by her parents. This officer said that the car was off, doors were closed, and it was just parked at the stop sign. He said there was no indication of a carjacking or a struggle.
Her parents state that they, quote, "don't know where they heard that the car door was open, car running, and lights on," end quote, but that is what they said that they were told. When Chandrea, the reporter, asked to see what was found in the car, her mom showed her a pair of socks, CDs, highlighter, lotion, a phone bill that was not one that her mom knew about.
According to Officer Benjamin Granda of the St. Louis County Police Department, the crime scene unit did go to the tow yard in East St. Louis to process the car. They took photographs, but they did not find a cell phone at that time. Officer Granda also says that they extensively looked into the GPS coordinates from when she went missing on both phones, and they could not give any of that information out to the public at this time since they don't know if they'll need that information later on. When asked about the boyfriend, Michael, Officer Granda said that Michael was the most cooperative, most upfront person that they spoke to during the investigation, and he was ruled out as a suspect. Sex trafficking, abduction, homicide, those are all on the table when it comes to the police department's theories at this time.
Goldia claims that the police station never took it seriously, and honestly, we're seeing that. Chandrea Thomas, who is a reporter in the area, finally did take notice and help the family put the story out to the public. Most other news stations were not covering the story, but we're not sure why of that fact.
East St. Louis is in the top 5 of violent crime areas in the United States, and Interstate 70, where her car was found, is known as the sex trafficking interstate. The bad part about where she lived and where her car was found was the fact that it was in 2 different states. She lived in St. Louis, Missouri, but her car was found in East St. Louis, Illinois. So when the officer went to go check about her car, it did not immediately show up because it was in a different state.
All right, so back in 2017, over 100,000 women of color were reported missing and most were overlooked by the media. Let's get into some statistics on human trafficking before we continue, shall we? Thanks to Amanda for pulling this together for all of us. According to Safe Horizon, 24.9 million people are victims of forced labor. 16 million people are trafficked for forced labor in the private economy, including private individuals, groups or companies in all sectors except the commercial sex industry. 4.8 million people are trafficked for forced sexual exploitation. 4.1 million people are trafficked for forced labor and state-imposed forced labor, estimating that 20.9 million people are trafficked worldwide. Women and girls are a huge majority affected by human trafficking, accounting for 71% of all victims. 1 in 4 victims of modern slavery are children. 3.8 million adults are trafficked for forced sexual exploitation, and 1 million children are trafficked for commercial sexual exploitation. And it has got to end.
In the following weeks, months, and years following Phoenix's disappearance, Lawrence, her father, has combed the abandoned buildings of East St. Louis for signs of life. Goldia has spent years of interviewing local prostitutes and drug dealers in hopes of finding a lead. Not only did police appear to pay very little attention, but there was a scarce of media interest in her disappearance. Her parents believe this is due to her race, leading them to contact the Black and Missing Foundation to spur attention. Meanwhile, they hired private investigator Steve Foster to dig deeper.
Eventually, investigators learned that Phoenix had 2 birth certificates, one in her mother's maiden name and one in her adoptive name. Chandrea, the reporter who took the case under her wing, claims that Phoenix was communicating with, quote, multiple different men, end quote, in the months before she vanished and even had a second cell phone that her boyfriend or her parents didn't know about. Which we're going to get a little more into that in a little while, but Joe Delia, who is the retired deputy chief of police in St. Louis, was a part of a St. Louis task force that brought down the largest prostitution ring in St. Louis history and took Phoenix's case seriously when a lot of the other law enforcement personnel were not. Chandrea and Joe have worked closely on Phoenix's case in recent years.
A friend of Phoenix's, Tim Baker, agreed to talk to Chandrea, and when he was asked if she had mentioned to him that she was going back to college, he states that, quote, she said that she was going to UMSL. I did not know that she was not going that last semester. Later on, it came out that she had not enrolled in the last semester, and I didn't know about that, end quote. So that means she lied to him about being in school because we know she wasn't. He said that wasn't like her to lie. He said, quote, Phoenix used to have 2 cell phones, and one was on her parents' plan and one was on her own plan. She would occasionally call me from one, and then I would obviously respond to her on that phone. As to why she had those phones back then, you would get a bill that shows all your different phone contacts and that you would have called. And so obviously it would be her calling Michael. And so since she didn't want her mother to know, I would assume that's why she got the second cell phone, end quote.
So Phoenix had a boyfriend named Michael. Tim had said that she was living with him during college. Phoenix told him not to say anything to her parents considering how strict and religious that they were. They did believe that you don't date until you're married, so they didn't know about him until she was missing. Goldia said that she had been to Phoenix's apartment and it didn't look like someone lived with her. She said she even looked in the closets, which is a little strange in our opinion. Her parents didn't know until later that they had dated off and on for 4 years.
Her parents did talk to Michael, and he told them that he couldn't remember what they had discussed right before she went missing yet. He was the last person she had contact with before she went missing. Her dad says that he seemed very shady and acted like he was hiding something. He had several phone numbers.
Akira Hogan, who was the best friend of Phoenix, claims that Goldia was so strict on Phoenix that she didn't even want her to go 4 houses down and had to stay outside if she did. Goldia thought Akira was a bad influence on Phoenix. Phoenix apparently hated being homeschooled mainly because she never got to experience prom or homecoming or any of those special events that you expect to do whenever you're in school, and she really wanted to. Akira said that when Phoenix moved home from college is when it all went downhill. Akira said that, quote, she started changing after a while because she started arguing with her parents more. She seemed more irritated, more down. When she was asked if she thought Phoenix seemed to change more in the 6 months leading up to her disappearance, Akira said, quote, I don't know what was going on with her during that time. She felt like people were following her. Her mom told me that it was people watching them in the park. Phoenix would say things like, they're coming to get me, but didn't know who or why.
Akira says that Phoenix and her got in a huge fight a week before she went missing, and she had never talked to her again. The fight, according to Akira, was because Phoenix said that Akira was talking about her and that she had something about her and her boyfriend, Michael, but Akira said that she never did, and it was really confusing. Akira also mentions that she started carrying around a knife, quote, like a sword knife, end quote. She kept it on the driver's side of her car door, and she pulled that knife on Akira during an argument. Also, during that same argument, Phoenix told Akira that she was leaving, and when Akira asked what she meant, she said, quote, I'm just leaving. I'm going to pack my stuff, and I'm going to go, end quote. But wouldn't say anything else. She really didn't seem like herself, according to Akira.
Now, this part is pretty disturbing to me personally, but Phoenix had recorded a video before disappearing in which she yearned for a new life. She spoke of wanting to start over, but that she can't wait to start the new me over. In that video, which it was a selfie video and we will link it, but in the video, Phoenix can be seen saying, quote, I got ditched. This is ridiculous. I just want to start over. I just feel like I can't start the new me over. People don't give a fuck. I don't know. I've got to see things for how they are. You know, like, instead of thinking about it like that, see things for what they are. Lord, please help me accept the things that won't change and that I won't change the things that I can't change. She also goes on to say, quote, that's why I don't like talking to people when I'm mad or whatever, because I say shit that I don't mean, and that's when you learn to hold your composure. I want people to take me seriously. I just want to be happy, man. I feel so stupid because I let myself go a little bit. I probably would have been in a better situation if I would have stuck with how I used to be, but might as well ride in the back with the cops all up in here. The only person that won't let me down is me. End quote.
In this video, she looks so sad and distraught, very troubled looking. It's so heartbreaking to watch. The video looks to have been recorded on November 15th of 2011, so about 1 month and 3 days before she went missing. I have searched for a copy of this video, but they have not released the whole video to the public, so all we have is what was just mentioned, and you can watch this part of it on the Oxygen documentary, Who Is She? The Disappearance of Phoenix Coldon.
Akira watched the video for the first time, and when Chandrea asked her what she thought about Phoenix in the video, Akira says that she seems depressed and like she doesn't have a feeling in the world. Like she feels lost and lonely, like she doesn't have anybody. Akira says that she never saw Phoenix like that, and they told each other everything, even emotional stuff. But she never saw her like she was acting in that selfie video, and after watching that video, she thinks Phoenix just went away and she doesn't know if she is alive or not. She doesn't think that she would run away permanently, maybe leave for a little while, but not this long, and never reach out.
Akira also says that Phoenix did want to leave Michael B, but just didn't know how. Phoenix started meeting different guys, and she was also seeing another Mike from school. She had been seeing them both. So, other Mike was just the one she used to get the burner phone with and kept hidden. He worked at the phone store and would give her discounts on the burner phone. Akira didn't know what happened with the phone store Mike after Phoenix moved back in with her parents, though.
A private investigator was able to find phone store Mike and get an address for him. Also, This Mike did have a record including alleged acts of violence against his ex-girlfriend. When confronted, all he had to say was, quote, "I have a lawyer and I want you to call my lawyer or talk to him." They spoke to Phone Store Mike's ex-girlfriend who put a restraining order on him, and she states that she had met him in 2010 while working together. They were together for about a year and a half, and he started becoming more possessive and angry, and eventually it became emotionally, mentally, and physically abusive. She also states that during Christmas time in 2011, she would always see him researching different missing person cases, especially Phoenix's, and a couple of missing person cases in Chicago. He told her that he was looking because it just was interesting to him because he was a psychology major. He was always looking to see where they were in the investigation with Phoenix. And he told her that Phoenix was a customer of his, and later on during an argument, he let it out that he had actually had sex with her.
A group member of a group called Mothers of Missing Children said that someone inboxed her some information on Phoenix. There were screenshots of her trafficked on a website, and when the journalists saw the pictures that were used, they said that there were old photos from before she went missing, and one that is used is in the media a lot. So she believes it wasn't actually Phoenix and someone just tried to play a very evil hoax. With sex trafficking, the girls usually are dressed in very little clothing and do not look extremely happy, which was not the case here. So that unfortunately was a dead end.
Tragically, Goldia and Lawrence Coldon have spent all of their savings in a family home on a promising lead when a Texas man claimed to know where Phoenix was. This family just spent everything they had on another round of private investigators to follow up on the tip, only for the man to admit that he had made it all up.
Ultimately, investigators believe the three most likely conclusions to this mystery are that Phoenix Coldon was either abducted by sex traffickers, ran away on purpose, or died in some unknown act of foul play. In 2014, Phoenix's friend, Kelly Fronhart, said that she saw Phoenix boarding her flight and that the woman reacted when Kelly said Phoenix's name. The woman was traveling with several young women and two men who, quote, looked like they could be pro football players, end quote, but the young woman wouldn't engage with Kelly. Perhaps the most chilling conclusion is that the ex-girlfriend of Phone Store Mike once asked him if he knew where she was, she meaning Phoenix, and he replied, quote, "Why are you worrying about someone who's dead?" End quote.
Before we wrap today's episode up, please don't forget to join our Patreon for bonus content such as our Not So Nefarious Criminals podcast. Each week, we have a guest, and somehow we always forget that we have a guest. Gee, I wonder if that's scripted or... I'm kidding, guys. It is scripted. No, it's not. But we talk about the lighter side of crime, such as Florida Man. It's a great palate cleanser, and you are missing out if you're not part of that.
We will be at the 2023 True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival in Austin, Texas, August 25th through 27th. We are super excited. There will be tons of great people there, and you do not want to miss out. It's so much fun, and you get to be around advocates as well as paranormal and ethical true crime creators, and even get to listen to some great speakers. Tickets are for sale at truecrimepodcastfestival.com, and we will have stuff to give away.
A quote from Phoenix's best friend Akira goes as follows, quote, "I feel like a part of me is gone because I don't have my best friend. And I want everyone listening to take a moment and marinate on that. Imagine if this happens to you or your best friend or family member. We certainly never want to bring the house down and make everyone sad all the time, but the reality of it is, these are the worst days of people's lives, and we have to be cognizant of that."
Like everyone we cover on this podcast, Akira, Phoenix, Phoenix's family and friends are all bees. Victims and survivors, like bees, are resilient, strong, yet vulnerable. We need bees to survive and thrive in life. Without bees, we as humans are doomed. So always be vigilant, for when you mess with the bees,
you get the hive.
Thank you for listening to A Nefarious Nightmare. Music used in the theme was originally recorded by Ghost Stories Incorporated, remixed by Ryan RCX Murphy. Additional background music is provided by Epidemic Sound. A Nefarious Nightmare is scripted, researched, and produced by Courtney Finner and Amanda Cronin. This podcast is a Cloud 10 podcast managed by Sim Sarna, Sahiba Krieger, and Jamie Rice of Murderish and Dirty Money Moves. You can help us grow our show by leaving us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Or you can join our Patreon for lighthearted bonus content. Thank you, and as always, be vigilant.